know the potency of what they have. And so when they are releasing it, they bring it down to the consumer and then make the consumer catch up to where they are. As you said, AI did not start today. AI started with computer languages that can trace to MIT and Sloan Tech over 31 years ago. They have done and reached an advanced field and are just slowly releasing out products for our today consumption. 31 years ago of research being released to you now. What we are seeing in terms of dynamics is, I understand your concern, but I believed in the case of black hat, white hat, because I've been in those cases and spaces before. For every equal damaging product which looks to penetrate or cause havoc, there's equally a balance of products that will fight them. And like I said, there's already counters for deepfakes that are being deployed into social media websites. Cloud engineering, and when you look at the big four, the Googles, the Microsoft, Facebook, and all, what they are doing as regards AI is to basically provide better productivity for you. So when we're also concerned about jobs, right, I also ask the thing is, within Africa, we've had unfair advantage, like we've had bad advantages. AI is what helps create unfair advantages. So how do we ride the wave? It means very simple. Whatever we are learning in school today, whatever is being taught by our own lecturers, can be added into creating even a new part of learning. Let's take, for example, I study geology, and I'm trying to understand what the entire topographical nature of Lagos is. And I want to test soil samples. With AI, you can test those soil samples and get analysis within minutes than hours or months that it would have been taking it into phase and filing normally. Because it's taking samples from already existing and pattern matching it to me. I'm taking that analysis and then creating a new solution. So what we need to understand is that while AI, yes, might be taking some jobs, what it's doing is exposing you to leapfrogging opportunities. And all we need to do is basically say, where do I want to be? Or what do I want to achieve? And how can this technology get me there? And the second most important thing is also where the opportunities are. Believe in me, as long as AI is still existing, there's still a behemoth traditional industry that exists globally. In the sense that while AI is more like a fringe science, you can count it that it will take at least 20 years to be adopted fully and evolving in day-to-day life. So I don't think it's something we need to worry yet on. But I think it's something that we need to ride the wave on and build upon and then unlock new opportunities that leapfrog where we are. Because within Africa, we can go 3x our current neighbors in Europe when we have the tools to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Tope. So I'm going to be taking a question from the audience. The question is, with regards earning money, since most things are online, ahead of play-to-earn games, P2E, the person gave an example, that's Anen and Axie. So what do you have to say about the aspect of play-to-earn games? Is it something one should devote time to, or do you think it is just a waste of time? So, Fisayo, would you like to answer that? Oh, really? Shadrach, would you mind taking that? About P2E?
So in terms of devoting time to and investing in play-to-earn games, honestly, it depends, right? I mean, there is a market for every single thing that you can possibly think of, right? So focusing our energy on play-to-earn games, I honestly don't think we should, right? Because at the end of the day, it seems like a gamble, right? Sorry, I'm very, very controversial in terms of this particular topic, which is why I decided to talk. It seems like a gamble because these games are a bit modified, right, to make sure that the organization hosting it doesn't lose money, right? It's just like betting, for example. I mean, how many of us are on sporty bets, just sporty bet game? So, I mean, it's just like betting, right? At the end of the day, no matter how smart you think you are, you can never beat the system. You can never beat sporty bet. That's just the truth. You can never. So, if you plan to spend all your money on sporty bets, you would be left hungry and poor, right? So, I think these play to earn games, we should like maybe focus on it, maybe just a bit in moderation, right? I mean, there's no harm in doing it, but in moderation. When it gets past that threshold, and it becomes very harmful, right? So that's all I just really have to say on that, right? Just maybe give a little bit of attention to it, but overall, I personally think it's a gamble, and yeah, that's pretty much what I think.
All right, thank you for that. So I will take one more question. So the person's asking, how do we keep our technical industry knowledge current? Like, how do we keep it current?
All right. Thank Catching up on insights on how you keep things not to stay on trends. It's as usual Google. I could say that, but interestingly, what we do is to check out mostly technology blogs and magazines that give you insights into how people think, and not just the ones within Nigeria, but preferably outside the country, and not just only from the Western world, but also take things from Eastern world, which is China. The reason being, you need to see from the two sides of how people write, right? Western media sites like Inside, Wire, TechCrunch, Business Insider, all of them write from a point of view, Silicon Valley driven. But then you start looking at Xiaopeng News and start looking at things like China Playbook, you start seeing things from the Eastern front. So you're able to create insights. But then in Nigeria here, most of the tech blogs that you know, there's Tech Points, there's Tech About, there is Tech Next, there is Radar, all provide some good insights. But what I also like is that check medium sites of leaders. Some of the speakers here have their own medium blogs, and they write. I think one person I know sitting down here, he writes sometimes when he blesses us to do. But yeah, you get to hear insights from them, what they read, what they see. And most importantly, for me, I like watching news. So I'm on CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, and then I'm going to some funny sites on DSTV that I'll just be there watching technology news, CNTV, NAN, and all. Just basically gathering knowledge. This is personally a fun habit of mine, but it might not be for you. But I think what you can do is take trend into the top 4 or 5 blogs, magazines, right? Who share information as it happens. But also check if you're on social media, follow the most interesting people on tech news. It could be Elon Musk himself, because people are always fighting him there. But you're always getting to see the most interesting things happening around the tech ecosystem, because you need to follow the market leaders. And you could just check who is the market leader on XYZ topic. You see names, follow them on social media, and just see, because whatever they are saying is what is current and what is hot. And there's always debate and discussions that will happen on places like Clubhouse, which is a social media app where people talk. There's also Twitter Spaces. There is actually podcasts. So what I do is mix a little bit of all this to kind of get an insight to where the world is headed and make my strategies across board. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. We have a lot of questions here, but I'm really so sad that there's no time. right? So, I mean, you have their socials, so you could ask them, chat them on LinkedIn, talk to them about questions that you have regarding emerging technologies. All right, thank you so much once again for you all being here. I really appreciate it. So I personally, I think the takeaway from this is you have to ensure that you're constantly, getting updated with the changing world, right? I mean, you don't want to be left behind either personally or in your knowledge or in your career as well. So always ensure that you keep yourself, you're up to date, right? So thank you so much for this. So can we give them a round of applause as they all leave the station? Thank you so much once again for coming. We'd like to take a picture and also invite the president to come to the stage and to give all our panelists an award for being at this program. Please, where's the NESA president? Okay, where's the gifts?
If you appreciate and you want to be like them when you grow up.
Wait, are we giving them anything? Can we have the plaques? So do we have the plaques? For the picture? If you want.
This is for sponsorship.
These are our tech bros.
So, can you assist us with bringing it out? Okay, so we want to present them with plaques, and we want to once again honor them for coming and gracing us with their presence for this tech panel. Please, can we clap and celebrate them once again?
DJ, soft music, please.
You guys, please, can you put this
Oh. And guys, just on the side, Mr. Fisola Fosudo is doing school fees giveaway here. School fees giveaway. If check my mic, please. Check. One time. School fees giveaway and a load of other giveaways coming through. We have over 350,000 naira to give out today. We also have techno with lots of freebies for everybody. This is in appreciation of your patience and staying with us. I can hear Fisaya. Is it the suit? What do you like? Is it the face? It's everything. It's very finer than your man makes some noise. But apart from Mr. Fisai, there's other fine boys there now. You don't like fine boys. You don't like men that wear native. Majo, 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 Majo,
This banger na gbedu. Sometimes me I got to choose. So many girls for the boo. Hello everyone. I say look, if I catch you inside, you don't be. I'ma take you inside in my room. Anyhow what you want we go do.
Now, I've actually requested that Fisayo should stay back. One house, please. The reason why I've asked him to stay back is to charge everyone seated here not to be afraid to be innovative. Please, never be afraid to be innovative. I'm happy for him because you are all seated here today, not because Dr. Shitu was creative enough to have started Expedition. Are we together? It wasn't my own making. He was one of a few Nessites who sat together, asked themselves, what can we do to empower our students moving forward? And today, we are celebrating the 8th expedition. Fisayo is one of those that will tell you the history of expedition in University of Lagos. He started along with a few others, Expedition 1.0. So, I'm happy because he's here today to still talk to us. And the good thing is he has never left Nessa alone. He kept calling, what can we do? What can we do? And when Nessa was in their need, he was the first person to come in on board to say, 8.0 will hold. I'm giving you so.
Everybody.
Jam your hands together for Desire. Thank you so much.
Make I tell you something, life is not fair.
Hello everyone. So I think this is a testimony on my part because basically at the beginning of my tenure as the president of NESA Unilag, that was 2021 I guess. So we were just kind of like, we're going to be having an expedition conference and we are going to be needing so amount millions of naira. And I was like, where are we going to get this money from? Then my team, publicity team, shout out to Kamara Wiki. So she just put out the content, and the first person to respond was Fisayo Fosudo, and he was like, I'm bringing so for you guys to have this event. So for this, we are grateful. We can see that you are intentional about us. And one thing about Fisayo is, even if Fisayo sees us, I think he recognizes me. We are not just individuals, we are Nessites. And for this, we say we are proud of you. Thank you so much. Everybody say,
Baby, tell me very honest.
big shout out to our very own good sponsor. God bless you. He has a word for only the girls.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Unilag and Nessa. I can never forget when we started like the expedition. I designed this logo and I'm so proud. I, it was one of those things where, and again, I can't take all the glory. Like all of us were in the offices. We were just working and working tirelessly from the first sponsor and the first people to honor the event. I'm so grateful to you, Dr. Shitu. Thank you so much for the speech. I'm grateful to everyone that showed up here and everyone that has been showing up since Expedition 1 until this 8th edition. Thank you so much. I saw all the developments and I was like, I think the last time when I came, we did a donation and I'm doing the same donation again this year. So thank you so much, Nessa. I really, really appreciate this. And thank you so much for honoring me. It was a huge honor to be here. Thank you.
Staff Sile. Sir, I've not paid school fees. Sir, this is a serious case. I don't know, please can you look here? I owe school fees.
Thank you once again to all our amazing panelists who came for the panel session. I'm sure we learned a lot about innovation and AI and technology during that session. And although we would have loved to have more time to really go in depth, I'm sure we learned from the small time we had. Now we're going to be moving on to the finance conference, or the finance panel session. And can we first of all give a round of applause for all our panelists who came for this event? Can we clap for them?
Please, a round of applause for every one of them.
In this finance panel session, we're going to be covering investing in emerging markets and opportunities. And a final year economics student of the University of Lagos, who is a venture analyst at Get Equity, and who is focused on venture investing, startup development, and support, is going to be moderating this event. Can we put our hands together and welcome to the stage, Gladys Adugo.
She's beautiful, give it up!
Everybody. Can you hear me? Hi everybody, good afternoon. Trust we're having an amazing time. We're not having an amazing time? Okay. I think particularly for me, it's pretty insightful that as students, we're not just partaking in conversations that is shaping our lives and capable of impacting our future, but we are also actively driving and pushing these conversations. And I am glad to be in the presence of distinguished individuals who are thought leaders in the finance space. And given how important the finance space is to the economy, I think I'm very excited to be leading this conversation with them. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my panelists. The first one is Akinlolu Akinyele. Please give it up for Mr. Akinlolu Akinyele.
Akinlolu Akinyele has nearly 2 decades of experience in the insurance industry, with his expertise cutting across business development, strategic planning, portfolio management, underwriting, and stakeholder management. Akinlolu joined Coronation Life Assurance from AXA Nigeria, where he started his career nearly 2 decades ago and rose to become a senior executive and head of the company's oil and gas, aviation, and emerging corporate business practice, with the responsibility for managing both commercial life and general business relationships. His time at AXA Nigeria included a brief stint at AXA Regional Office in Madrid, where he worked closely with other colleagues from across the globe to develop the group's oil and gas business across Africa, South America, and the Middle East. He also led the SME Business Strategic Development Project, amongst other projects. He holds a Bachelor of Science Honours degree in Biochemistry from the University of Ibadan and an MBA from the prestigious Lagos Business School. He is also an associate member of the Chartered Insurance Institute, London. Let's welcome Akinlolu Akinyele.
You're very much welcome, sir. So thank you very much. Moving on quickly, I'll be calling my next panelist, Oluwatosin Olasende, who is ably represented by Adedayo Bakare. Please, let's give it up for Adedayo Bakare.
Bayo Rotimi is an
Please keep clapping for our panelists.
Oluwatomi Sholanke is the founder and CEO.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. And moving on, I'll be calling my next panelist, Kennedy Ekezie. Kennedy Ekezie, please put your hands together for him.
Kennedy Ekezie is a young Nigerian tech entrepreneur as well as the founder and CEO of Keeper, a bookkeeping app for 200 million plus small businesses in Africa. He has not only made great strides in the financial service sector, but has also been able to solve small businesses' problems by providing them with free, easy-to-use accounting software. He was the first Nigerian recipient of the Chinese Rhodes Scholarship and has a master's degree in economics. He previously worked with Accenture, where he worked with the team that led the expansion of TikTok into Africa. In 2022, he won the Future Awards Africa Prize for Technology. Let's welcome Kennedy Ekezie.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for making our time to have this conversation with us. I think that given how pivotal the finance space is to economy, it's very important that we have these conversations. And given that we have two divides, those that use this capital and those that help in stimulating this capital, we'll be having this conversation from two angles. So I'll be starting off with Mr. Kennedy Ekezie. So understanding that you're building a tech product and then you're trying to improve the finance culture of individuals, what would you say your financing journey has been? And then what have been the major challenges, given the markets you play in?
Firstly, this is probably the most, can you guys hear me? Yeah. It's probably the most energetic audience I've ever seen. So just to keep this very efficient, because the reason why, hundreds of you are out here today, most of you here are students, I want to answer the question, be very specific. So personally, I do not have a financial background. Like I studied philosophy in undergrad. I studied economics in grad school. And I do not think of myself as a traditional financial expert. So we had a back and forth on what panel I should actually even sit on. Very, very specifically, to get down to the question, I run a company that works with hundreds of thousands of small businesses on a monthly basis. And in the field that we play in, we get to directly, the software we've built sits directly at the heart of small businesses and their finance. And we get to see how important and pivotal, right? When we see macro events happening in the economy, like the cash crunch that happened recently, how it practically affects the day-to-day of how businesses run and how individuals run. To get very specific again, what
So basically, given the market you play in, what are the challenges you have faced?
So as an entrepreneur building for small businesses, there's quite a ton of them. Small businesses are very small, especially in this part of the world. Again, like I say, we see a lot of their finances. One of the biggest things is the learning curve that comes with the adoption of technology. Spend time living and working in other parts of the world, and it's a lot easier. Small businesses, there's very little of hand-holding you need to do. But given in our market, the average user is semi-literate at best. We have a lot of work to do from a product design perspective to design around the nuances of how educated they are. But more so, we are a company that is very capital intensive to build and run. charging small businesses is also very, very, very difficult. And it's been a significant challenge that we've had to get creative around. But I'm just going to pause at those two. I think those are probably some of the most important challenges we face as a business on a daily basis.
Thank you very much for that. I think before we go ahead with questions, I'm informed that we have one of our panelists that will be joining us now, Oluwatomi Sholanke. Please, I'll be on my feet to welcome Oluwatomi Sholanke. Please give it up for Oluwatomi Sholanke. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Sincere apologies for that once again. I think we'll be moving on to Mr. Akinlolu Akinyele. So understanding that you help businesses go to the market, especially in sourcing for capital, what would you say are your key considerations for these businesses?
Hello, can everyone hear me? Loud and clear, right? Okay, thanks, Gladys. Just following on what Kennedy said, I think you guys have been some of the most amazing audiences I've seen. I was very honored when you called me. Okay, for me, in terms of your question is around how you assess people for credit. Yeah. Okay, even though in the area of finance where I play, finance is a broad spectrum, which involves, getting access to capital and then preserving the capital and preserving the wealth. The area in which I play more is around preserving the wealth, but I can speak to accessing capital. I think accessing capital is very easy. For entities that mediate capital, in terms of giving capital, everybody wants to get value. And creation of value is the most important thing. If I'm to give you capital, I'm going to get value out of it. But more importantly, I cannot get value if you are not going to create value. So for accessing capital, what typically we look out for is the capacity of that entity that needs the capital to be able to create value. And there are many ways in creating value. Value could be in terms of the product that you're offering, the services that you're giving, but more importantly, your ability to pay back. Remember, capital, the way I look at capital is one block, we give somebody, it creates value, expands the capital base, and we give somebody else. Now, if you give you access to that capital, and you are not able to return it, then it limits the ability of somebody else to get it. So basically, what will be looked at is that entity's ability to create value and then be able to pay back that capital. And there are many things you look at. If you want to go into the details, you look more about the cash flow, you look at the value, you look at the operations of the company, you look at the people. The people are the most important, because if you have a fantastic solution that creates value and the person is not morally upright, the value that will be created will go elsewhere. So again, you have to also look at the moral as in terms of the people. So basically, for people who want to access capital, you have to ensure that when you are presenting yourself to those that can provide you capital, you show that you can deliver value, you show capacity to manage that value creation, and then you show capacity that you have the ability to pay back. I think broadly, in a nutshell, that's what I'll say on that.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. So my next question is directed to Oluwatomi Sholanke. But before I ask my question, I really want us to pay attention to Oluwatomi's journey and hear how much he has achieved thus far.
Oluwatomi Sholanke is the founder and CEO at Trove Finance, a micro-investing platform that lets Nigerians invest in publicly traded US, Nigerian, and Chinese stocks, government bonds, and more. He is also the co-founder of Drop Buddies, a peer-to-peer delivery startup based in Lagos State, Nigeria. Oluwatomi Sholanke holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Lagos, Nigeria. He has in the past worked as a volunteer of the Red Cross organization in Lagos, where he observed that there were thousands of missing Nigerian children lodged in various child care institutions and 1 million plus people lodged in internally displaced camps who never got identified. To help identify and match all these people, with the help of a friend, Oluwatomi built Who Spotted Me, a crowdsourced web-based application that utilizes facial recognition technology and artificial intelligence to help in finding missing people. The application, since it was launched, has received submissions from 12 states and has resulted in over 1,000 data and names given to the rescue agencies in Nigeria. Let's welcome Oluwatomi Sholanke.
Thank you very much. I think, other than the fact that it's pretty interesting what Oluwatomi's initial journey was not in finance and he pivoted. Also, he's also one panelist that has special announcements for us, but that will come in later. So I'd want to ask you, given the markets you play in, what opportunities do you think are yet to be explored that are capable of shaping our future?
Greatest Akokites. So for me, this is very nostalgic. I was here, I think visiting, coming for events here 12 years ago. So it's good to be back home, I like to say. And to answer the question, I think a lot of the things that come to mind for me are people are beginning to play within those spaces. I think the most exciting things for me, I think the previous panel touched on those things, is how things like AI and ML, machine learning, could actually shape the way we think, the way we interact with ourselves as human beings, the way we live as human beings. And when I say as human beings, both as individuals and as entities, as businesses too, alike. So I think that's a very interesting space. I think it's very nascent. I think it's still very early days. People are experimenting, building a lot of interesting stuff there. But I think we've just barely scratched the surface. And I think the next couple of years, 10, 20, 50 years, will be very, very interesting. I think a lot of the things that we've seen in I'm trying to remember a lot of, cartoons that I used to watch growing up, where you see flying cars, you see a lot of automation where, people are sleeping in their cars. They're starting to see those things these days with Tesla, autonomous vehicles and stuff. I think those things will become a lot more prevalent. And I think, like I said earlier, those two things, like AI, ML, I think it will really drastically shape the way we interact with ourselves. And, it's a very interesting future for me. And I'm, very keen to see where all of these things go.
Thank you very much for that succinct answer. I'd want to remind my audience, please, if you have questions for the panelists, do well to write them down, and we will be taking your questions. Coming on to Adidayo Bakare, understanding that you also work in the finance space and trying to make sure that investing culture and finance culture is improved, I'd want to understand the impact of the political landscape. Now we're talking about the country. How does this affect your business, and how does this affect your flow of funds?
Okay, is it better? Okay, so political landscape, from an investing perspective, I think the major thing to note is more around the regulatory aspect, right, and also the policy. So I'll give a few examples. One of the things we struggle with in Nigeria today, and I'm sure so many people can attest to this, is nobody wants to hold the currency. Nobody wants to hold the naira. That's a policy issue. So if I'm in Nigeria and I'm building a business where I'm trying to mobilize domestic investment, I want people to save, because if you are saving, you're able to invest, right? The number one problem is no one wants to hold the naira. Why? Inflation is 21%, right? Money market rates are below that, right? Long term, Nigeria's naira is losing value 12% annually. Long term, the USD is losing value 2% annually. The difference is sort of the long-term depreciation you have in the currency.
So the number one problem is a policy problem, where people don't have confidence, in the country, in the sort of the money that we have, and that's one of the issues we have. The other problem is regulatory, right? We have an environment where, the tech panelists, Tokwe was saying in particular, if you work in an enterprising economy, right, regulation must always play catch up, right? You can't innovate, regulators cannot innovate faster than the innovators. And so one of the things that I think to the credit of even the Nigerian environment is, compared to other African countries, when you look at the likes of SEC, the likes of CBN to an extent, we've seen a more, let me say, friendlier climate, because we've spoken to entrepreneurs in other countries. You want to break into East Africa, you want to break into Southern Africa, it's extremely difficult. Regulators here would allow you build, right? Then they can come after you, or you negotiate with them. In other places, they don't even allow you to start, so you have a lot of problems. So I would say regulatory-wise, we're not doing so badly. There's room for improvement, right? But we're not doing badly. I think the major problem we're facing is more a policy problem, a macroeconomic policy problem that continues to not just hamper people who are trying to build wealth, but also businesses who are trying to be more productive.
Thank you very much. So from what he has said, one of the problems we have is a policy problems. So it is now left for us to now think outside the box, be innovative on how to improve on this. Before we go on, I think I have one last question, but I'd like to, one of my panelists just walked in, Mr. Bayo Rotimi, and I would like to invite him on board.
Bayo Rotimi is an investment banker with over 27 years experience. He previously worked at Fountain Trust Merchant Bank, Lead Merchant Bank, and FCMB Capital Markets Limited, where he rose to the position of Chief Executive Officer in 2008 before leaving to establish his own boutique investment banking firm. He was previously the chairman of the investment committee of ARM's Discovery Aggressive Growth, Ethical Money Market, Fixed Income, and Eurobond funds with over 110 billion under management. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Lagos and a master's degree from the University of Sheffield, UK. He has acquired significant experience over the years and has led the execution of numerous landmark transactions cutting across corporate finance, capital raising, and financial advisory services, corporate restructuring, privatization advisory, and project finance, among others. Wait, something has happened here that was supposed to happen. Let's start again, sorry.
Do you know what happened there that was not supposed to happen? He's an alumni. Please give it up for him. I think that we're so biased. You see when we have Unilag alumnus, the hype is different. Please hype him once again. Thank you very much, Pastor, for gracing us with your presence. We're super excited to have you here. And the entire conversation is really regarding how finance is affecting businesses and how it's impacting our future. So I think I'll just ask you my next question, and it would typically play into the fact that you just walked in. I'd want to ask you that, given how intense the nature of finance could be, how would you say you maintain balance, and then what impact would you as a person like to leave behind?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I'm going to ask you to please repeat the question. I didn't fully get your...
Okay, so I asked that, given how intense the finance space is, how do you as a person maintain balance? And then what impact are you looking to leave behind?
All right, thank you very much. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here. I haven't been inside of this room for 32 years. The last time I stepped here was 32 years ago. So you can start to guess how old I am. Even though I don't look it, Abby, I don't look it. I joined this great institution in 1986. Plenty of people here were not born. And I graduated from the Faculty of Social Sciences, from the Department of Economics. I can even tell you my matric number now. 860901027. So the brain cells are still alive. Ladies and gentlemen, everything in life is about balance. For you to achieve financial success, for you to achieve financial freedom, it's about understanding balance, it's about discipline. I studied economics, so ordinarily, I should have a healthy respect for money. But unfortunately, I went in the opposite direction. And when you disrespect money, money has a way of hitting back at you. You know, and for a very long time, post-graduation, I got out of Unilag. I went to the UK to do a master's, and I got into investment banking. Some of you in this room may know investment bank. Oh, you're an investment banker. Oh, insurance, okay. They don't. But investment bankers, ladies and gentlemen, receive, they're one of the highest paid professionals in the financial services industry. And I've worked in investment banking for almost 30 years. You know, so I used to get a lot of money, and a month later or a few days after I get paid, I have no sense of where the money is or what I have done with the money. So you can imagine what I used to do when I was in Unilag. Unfortunately, it followed me outside of Unilag. So I did not quite have financial discipline. That's where I'm going to. You can't spend everything you earn. There has to be savings, and on the back of savings, investments. So if you're talking about balance, achieving financial freedom, like I mentioned earlier, there has to be a healthy respect for money, and there must be discipline. It doesn't matter what you earn. I couldn't save as an investment banking analyst. When I became an investment banking vice president, I still could not save because the attitude and the discipline was missing. But do you know what saved me? Do you know what saved me? Look at his finger. What do you see? You people, go and find the right spouse. They will give you the balance that you are missing and the discipline that you lack. Do you understand? So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, I may not be answering your question, and I'm just going off on my own tangent. But bottom line is this. When it's time to get married, find the right person. Sure you hear me? So that balances you out. You know, one objective you should seek to have as you are going through this process on the verge of graduation, you must determine for yourself certain critical milestones, objectives in life. You want to achieve financial freedom by when? In the course of my journey, I said by the age of 40, I must not be working for anybody, irrespective of where I was on the career path or ladder. So at the age of 38, I became the chief executive officer of a leading investment bank in Nigeria. So the promise I made to myself now came back to haunt me, that you are 38 and you have said you would retire by force before 40. And you know, as an investment banking CEO, there is a lot of money that comes with it. But I had to walk that talk. So I left to start the business. that I ran for the next 12 years before I decided to move to yet another phase. So be clear about your pathway and have the discipline and the courage and the conviction to stick with it. And ultimately, you will achieve that fulfillment. Because in the final analysis, ladies and gentlemen, it's not really the size of your bank account. It's the impact that you are able to make. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. I think one thing I took is the fact that you might make all the money, but if you're not making reasonable impact, you have not started. And it's also good to know that at every point, you need to start now to learn to be financially disciplined. Because if you don't start now, what's the assurance that you would get to do that later? But one particular thing that's interesting is the fact that there's this notion that as economists, you are stingy. But now he just cleared that out that we're not stingy. We probably might not even know how to manage finances. Okay, so I'll be heading on quickly to questions from the audience. And I'll be starting off with, okay, there's a question directly for Mr. Akinlulu Akinyele. It says, given the emergence of new technologies in both Nigeria and international markets, how has AI impacted underwriting in the insurance industry?
Can you guys, okay, good. That's a very, very interesting question. The impact of emerging technology, I think we talk about AI and many other new technology, but AI and more important, data analytics to underwriting is one that we cannot even begin to imagine. In Nigeria, not as developed. In the advanced markets, we are beginning to see very interesting things. So today, underwriting basically is trying to assign, first of all, whether to write a risk, and then if you decide to write it, at what price. Now, today, what AI can do to change that scope today is that your lifestyle, it democratizes the pricing to the almost minute. So today, if you want to insure your vehicle, in Nigeria is a bit pretty straightforward. It shouldn't be. So they basically just take the value of your car and then applies a rating. But what AI can do to that basic process is you can actually pay your insurance as you drive it. And in developed markets today, you can. But basically what it does is that it just studies your driving pattern for a few periods and then assigns you a risk and then gives you a price. But what it can advance further is that if you drive your car today, you can get insurance paid today. And it's not that you will pay before, it almost will run like a meter. So as you are driving, the manner in which you are driving, the distance in which you are using, what you are doing, everything is being integrated into the system, and the data, the algorithms are calculating how to give back in pricing. And the other things that which it can do is that it can link it to your other lifestyles. It can basically make it a very interconnected world. So you are not able sometimes to find the boundaries anymore, whether it's between your motor insurance or your health, everything just collapses into one. But I was reading earlier today about some of the new things that was going to be released by Apple. I think Boston, Apple particularly, is releasing something today which basically infuses your Apple Watch, which measures everything you do to your health, and then it advises you that you've not been running too fast, and it also prescribes to you what you should do. And when I just sat back a bit to think of imagining where our world is headed, in a sense, I was a bit scared. But I know that, to be honest, technologies are evolving. Innovation itself is part of life. For those that do science, you see that the cells themselves, they are learning and they are creating better versions of themselves. That's what life is. And for us, what we want to ask ourselves is, which spectrum of this innovation do we want to be? Businesses will be wiped out, new opportunities will be created. So for us, AI is good. We are seeing the technologies evolve. It is scary for those that don't want to dare, but it is also full of big opportunities. AI in underwriting insurance is going to be very revolutionary, and it can impact all our lives in ways which we can imagine.
Thank you very much for that. I think it's particularly interesting that insurance can now, like the prospect of insurance being paid as you use. I think that takes the bias of what if I'm paying for this car insurance and then my car is parked. I think that's something interesting that I would like to see. My next question will be directed to Oluwatomi Sholanke. So basically, this person wants to know that given the markets you play in and competitors, how do you try to make your business stand out when you have business with similar models and even almost the same MVP as yours?
So I guess you have to figure out what your core strength is as a business. So that's pretty much how we think around it. And the core strength can be anything. It could range from support, the kind of support that you provide to customers, agility in terms of product innovation or in the way you think around product. That can be another differentiator. Brand perception of the business can be another differentiator. Some people create animated brands or brands that are very youthful. Case in point, when I was in Unilag, for example, GTE was on this drive to acquire a lot of student accounts. And they built a brand that was very interesting, very appealing to a certain demographic. There are some more traditional entities, more traditional banks that have focused on a completely different market segment, completely different demographic. There are people these days, for example, in banking that focus on Islamic banking. So I think the way we think around it is, from a people perspective, what are the strengths from a short-term, mid-term to long-term, and we employ like short-term to mid-term to long-term thinking. Things that we tilt towards. It's more around, like I said earlier, or I've double-clicked on, like the strengths of the individuals in the business, the way you think eventually you would win in that space. There are lots of verticals that are not, winner takes all. Like, for example, in banking, I keep going back to banking. There are, 20 plus commercial banks in Nigeria, and all of them are, to a very large degree, successful. They all serve different niches, different verticals, like I said earlier. But I think, like, as a business, you just have to think, what are we best at, and try to focus on that for mid to long-term success, and not just what are we best at. What do people really use the product for? And you continue to evolve, or we continue to evolve based on the needs of the specific customers that we have. We figure out deficiencies around other businesses too as well. Like, even if I sell bread and someone else sells the same bread, right? Is there some type of packaging that differentiates? Is